And everything that you just said, that is imagination. It's your fear, and that's based on fight or flight reaction because you're protecting yourself from embarrassment, from the fear of failure. But the fact is that creativity doesn't have failure.
Hi, my name's Moussa-Mann, and I wanted to make this podcast to highlight the women who are working in music production in the hope that it will spur more women into having the confidence to not just produce their own music, but call themselves producers. My guest today is Liina of York, originally of Finland, a music producer, a musician and YouTuber based in York, UK. I first discovered Liina through her channel on YouTube, LNA Does Audio Stuff, where she provides countless videos around productions in Ableton, as well as live performances, behind-the-scenes videos and breakdowns. Welcome to She's Doing It, So I'm Doing It. Can you tell me how you got into music and music production in the first place? What was your journey to get there?
Well, it's long. How long you have? Half an hour. Okay, so basically I've been doing music since I was born. So it's my mom is a musician and an artist, and my brother is a musician. And my parents met in a choir, so it's very much, music is very much in my blood, I would say. Our family time together is sitting by a piano. One starts playing, everybody kind of comes in. So when I went to school, I went to music-orientated schools, which means that we had it was specialized in music theory, and everything came through school, as well as choir, orchestra, everything. And I played violin since I was 5.
Oh, wow.
And then piano and guitars, and everything came together from the school. So I was kind of living and breathing music always.
Yeah.
And then when I was 19 and I was like, I'm never gonna be a musician. I never was gonna be a musician anyway. I swore by I'm never, since I was a kid, it was never my intention.
Was that
ever.
Just because you weren't interested, or was it because your parents did it and you didn't want to do that?
I think it was more the fact that I was doing theater. So theater was more, I was doing that 3 times a week. So yeah. I grew up next to a theater. So I started that when I was about 4 or 5 as well. And I was always my brother was supposed to be a musician and I was supposed to be an actress. That's just how it was supposed to go. I think there's a lot of things why I never even imagined that I was going to be a musician. But I think a lot of it is identity and being a social, very chatty girl. Yeah. Music tech is definitely not something that you're gonna be doing. Yeah. Definitely not. So I think it was very much school was very much of a struggle for me, but then school includes music, and then obviously I was never good at music because I'm very neurodiverse, so school was for struggle. I almost failed all my schools. I almost didn't, I was definitely not thinking I'm academic. I was definitely thinking I'm not techie person. I failed all my maths. And so obviously if your identity is based on the idea that this whole institution of learning and all that is not for you, and for me that includes music inside of that institution, I need to be on the other side, which is, being the theater kid. For me, it was a lot about identity and all this. And then I was 21 when I moved to Glasgow. Well, I was not supposed to. I was on my way to Australia, but I ended up staying in Glasgow. And now I've been in UK for 10 years, but that's a different story. But I just end up staying in UK. And so I'm from Finland originally. And Finland especially very quite academic. The community I was growing up was very classical music orientated. Yeah. And I never really listened to music because I was making it. So I did not grow up listening to bands or fangirling.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, a little bit, tiny bit, because I saw other people doing it. So I was I'm supposed to, but I never really got the concept.
Yeah.
I never understood what was the point.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
So I just kind of grew up making it instead of oh, what genre are you? I didn't really get that. So yeah, when I moved to Glasgow, I was working a lot in clubs and bars and stuff. And I suddenly was introduced, especially in Glasgow, it's amazing for electronic music. And suddenly all the clubs that I was working in had these, noise gigs or synth gigs. And there's like all these guys with buttons, and I dated a couple and and suddenly I was like in this world of electronic music, and I end up going to undergrad in Glasgow for commercial music. And I actually applied for 2 schools, theatre school and I got reserved to theatre school, and then I got into commercial music because my Finnish friend was there and she said, oh, you should apply. I was like, well, why not? Anyway, long story short, I saw buttons, I saw studios. I was like, hey, I'm a nerd. I didn't have no idea that I was a nerd. Great. I love this. Calls me. And suddenly I found a world that I could do music in my own terms through something I was very passionate about, something that was not about finger techniques or who's the best violinist, but it was more about exploration, like exploring sounds. And suddenly I was good at tech. I was good at science. And I was like, what's this? This is new to me. I went to York University, did my master's in music production, and that was very, very heavily tech-based, science-based. So we were not taught DAWs or techniques. We were taught how sound works mathematically.
How important is that?
Well, I personally think it was the best course I've ever done, and best thing that I could have ever learned. Because as a neurodiverse person, I'm asking always why? Why does that do that? Why does it work that way? And usually what you're just told is because it does, like the actual whole truth would be too complicated for you to understand.
Yeah.
And no, for me to understand why button does what it does, I need to understand the whole truth. Why? Where does the physics of sound come from? And now, yes, obvious as a school failure, not being, able to understand math, I was very much like, how can you expect me to learn this? I'm just a dyslexic girl. How can you expect me to learn math and coding? We were coding on the first course. We were coding with JS, our first plugins. And then I went to crying to my lecturer and I was like, how can you expect this from me? And he looked at me and he was like, okay, fair enough. You feel a lot of things. And then he says, study harder.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a good...
And I was just like, oh, shit. Like, I need to take responsibility of my own learning. Whoa, what? I need to stop crying and go to the library and figure out how I'm going to learn this. So he did help me. He was very supportive, but he also gave me that bit like stop pitying yourself and just do it. So I literally spent every Saturday in the library watching YouTube videos of math for dummies with stick figures. And I learned it, and I passed the course. I passed the module. I didn't get great markings from it. But if I would do now the same course, I probably would do really well, because what that started was this understanding of firstly how audio works, and understanding that it's my responsibility to learn whatever I want to learn. My dyslexia, my neurodiversity is not an excuse. It's me just learn in different ways. And if I need to watch YouTube videos with stick figures to learn something, then that's what I need to do. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's
so it's like...
That's so inspiring. I love that. That told me. I was doing some stuff yesterday and I'm like, yeah, I need to go just learn it.
How can a girl who has all the odds against her not to learn any of this stuff find basically confidence and to do it and to master it, to rock in it in a way, in a certain level that I can actually do it as a profession. I can call myself a producer with pride.
Was there a moment where you started calling yourself a producer? And when do you think that can happen for someone?
I think you need to call yourself as soon as you want to be something, you call yourself that. I think what women quite often do is that they don't apply for jobs that they feel like they're not qualified for. Where a man does, this is generalizing, I'm not saying all man, but I'm just saying that a lot of time, it's scientifically proved as well, there's a lot of men who apply for jobs they are not qualified for because they're just going to go for it anyway. So I know people who learned production for 2 days and they call themselves producer.
I still struggle with, like, although I'm producing a lot of my own stuff to a point. See, I still have to like be like, I do it to this much and then I give it to someone else, but I'm still producing a lot of it, but I still struggle to say.
Yeah, but who are you doing that for? Who are you trying to define that for? Who cares if you're a producer or not?
I know, I think I'm afraid that someone's just going to come and be like, you need to have someone pay you to produce for them to be called a producer, or no, you need to be able to do this to be a producer. Yeah, it's the imaginary person, I'm afraid, is going to just pop up and be like...
Exactly, that person doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And everything that you just said, that is imagination. It's your fear, and that's based on fight or flight reaction because you're protecting yourself from embarrassment, from the fear of failure. But the fact is that creativity doesn't have failure. It doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist in creativity. Like, if you think about it, we are not responsible of creativity that comes through us. So who the hell are you to say what can come through you or what not? Like, and also, who are you to say, or who is anyone to say what you call yourself? It's the same with anything. It's like, if you want to, it's your identity. It's who you are. So what is a producer? So is it someone who uses a beat making app on a phone? So if they make an album with that, that's a producer. You're producing. So who is there to say define who is a producer? It's like why do we put other people above us and take their word as gatekeepers to say that no, you need to have to be a producer you need to have a degree. To be a producer you need to know these techniques. Who are they to say that? Who gave them the permission to be the gatekeeper of producing?
I think it's really important. Like, that's why I wanted to make this podcast, because like you just said that to me and it's pulled me up on it. And I think that conversation needs to keep happening because I think it's constantly there.
I 100% agree. That's why I'm super passionate about it, because what I love seeing is that there's every insecurity we have has a psychological perspective of reason why we feel a certain way. So example, the fact that I was saying is your fight or flight reaction is actually something that is physically put in us, that we are scared of certain things. So you protect yourself, but then you keep on protecting yourself. You keep on giving yourself evidence that it's safer not to do things that scare you. So you need to learn to start giving your evidence that you can do that. And actually you didn't, there's no failure. And also, that's the one thing that I love saying is that failure should be rewarded and not to be punished.
You just produced an album in 7 days, right?
Yeah.
Because you run a YouTube channel, which is fantastic. And that's how I first found you. The making an album in 7 days, I was kind of laughing because it's taken me 2 years to make an album. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to do more of this. I wanted to talk to you about like why you decided to make an album in 7 days.
It's again based on everything that I believe, and actually comes back to theater. Funnily enough, I find that I needed to do theater for almost 20 years to be where I am now. So example, being on camera, I feel comfortable presenting in front of people. But I think when we think about theater, that's usually the first thing we think about is like, okay, you're comfortable in front of people. No. One thing that what it teaches the most is that failure, again, should be embraced. And there is comfort in failure. There is that, like, it really prevents fear of failure, because I did this clownery course, right? When I was studying theater when I was like 20, I went to Helsinki Theater School for a while. And there was this lesson. This will come back to this album in 7 days. Don't worry. Yeah. But clowns too. And I did this course, and basically this teacher who I never taught me before, and she came in and she said, okay, now everybody's going to sit on the audience, and one person at a time is going to go on the stage. They're going to walk in. They can't talk. You're not allowed to talk, but you need to make us laugh. For 10 minutes, you need to make us laugh. I know. Your anxiety is like, you need to make us laugh. You can't speak. And as soon as you don't make us laugh anymore, we will boo you off.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
I need to do this class.
I always think about back to that because, so what I did is I stayed a quite long time, kind of like, yeah. So I felt proud of myself. But what I did is that I just stared at people. Because so I was just kind of going, because my, and that seemed to be funny to people. Yeah. But the whole idea of that course was the fact that as soon as we're put in front of failure, we start trying to think we're trying to please others, right? We're trying to find from our in self to ways to find their love, their acceptance, their everything. We will try so hard to find every bit in ourselves to make other people like us.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we mask everything that is actually good about ourselves. We mask our true selves. We mask our true emotions, the things that people connect, the people that people react in us, the things that make people laugh. Like example, humor is very connected to many things, but one thing, there's many ways to do humor, but one way to do humor and make other people laugh is to make fun of yourself first, to find your insecurities, to find your weak points and embrace those with honesty. And usually that is what makes people laugh the most, because it comes from something so real that people connect with it. Coming back to album in 7 days, I think all this experience with theater drove me to understand that I can't fail. I can't fail in this. There's no possibility. If I go in it with my honesty and not trying to look for other people's approval, but I am constantly reminding myself that I will fail in this, potentially. It's very possible. Making an album in 7 days, it's very possible that I'm not going to make it. That's very, very possible. But same time, at that moment, I was also thinking, but it's very possible that I will succeed in it because I trust my skills. So example, a year ago, I could not have done it in the level I'm doing it now, because I also know my skills as a producer. I know my skills as a music maker, and I'm crafted my workflows, and I know how to do my workflows so that I can get to from like my YouTube channel is full of challenges where I'm like a track in 10 steps or blah, blah. That's all based on workflows and planning. They are guidance. They give us instructions. They are not rules, but they are the compass from one place to another. And if you follow the rules, you will get to the end of the rules. You will get from 1 to 10. You will get from A to B. And there's no other option. If you follow the steps, you will. So how can I fail in that? Only way that I can fail in that is to say to myself, I don't like this. And that's the trickiest thing. 7 days to make stuff that I actually like. But I had a plan on how I can like it. So I had a plan, I had a workflow to realize how to make music I like. And that was creating a sample library first. I was playing violin, I was playing drums. So I created one of these by myself. I guess there was almost like 50, 60 samples that I created first. And then I started putting those together. And suddenly I was like, okay, I have 9 3-4 sample groups Each one of these groups had about 3-4, so one drum, one bass, maybe some chords, hooky bit, something like that. And then I just took those and put them into linear arrangement. But at the same time, I was completely aware, like I said in the beginning of the streams, this might not work. I know that. I know that these might be bad, or I might get a mental breakdown in the middle of it and just leave and not do it. But that's okay as well. People react to it really well. Like, I was constantly being honest. I was saying that I don't like that. I don't like that. Okay, I like this. This works. This doesn't work. And the funny thing is that so often during the streams, I said, okay, I'm not vibing this yet, but I trust the process. And this is what I noticed. A lot of the comments said, oh, you should do that, or you should do this. Oh, mix it already. And I'm like, no, hold your horses. Like, trust the process. It will sound good. I have a plan. I have it in here, what I want to do with it. But it's okay that it doesn't sound good all the time. Let's say you have a really bad day. And then you just decide that, okay, now on, from this moment on, I'm going to pretend that I'm somebody else. I'm starting again. What should I do? What should I go forward with? It's like, let's start again. So example, let's say you have a song that you're not liking. Pretend that someone is giving you these samples. Look at it from fresh eyes. Look at it with fresh mindset. What's so important is that you just have fun. Like, that is something that, especially in music production, you start be obsessed about techniques and tools and what's cool and what genre should it be, and you start it's so overwhelmed by the society and the culture that we have around us that we forget that why playing actually means playing, like kids play, right? Which usually equals fun. And that's the kind of thing that we need to get into, especially music production, because we often get that with acoustic instruments, because we just there's not many options. So you kind of just need to get on with it. And usually, but then with computers and controllers and synths, there's so many options that we get so focused on, are we using it correctly? Are we doing things correctly? Is this music correct? That we forget that it's still just playing, it's still music.
You used to teach as well, didn't you? I read that you were a lecturer. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, at Leeds Conservatoire.
Yeah, which was probably a bit different, but I'm assuming that there was similar issues around women moving into this space, and like, what are the obstacles you've seen, and what kind of things do you think could help move those obstacles, or help women wanting to move into this to give them more confidence?
Ooh, this is a big question. It's a massive question. Okay, so either as a student, like gone through universities, or being a lecturer, I think the most important thing is literally confidence, as you said. This is what brings women in, is confidence. But how do you build confidence is many things. And yeah, role models are very important. Yes, we agree, like groups and all that. But what I think, especially if we're thinking about higher education, in those universities or higher education, the responsibility of diversity needs to come from everybody. Even if it's not that direct, there might be, okay, let's say there's 5 guys and then there's sound desk. So like example, I'm teaching studio equipment in a university, and let's say there's 5 guys and 1 girl. So where does the girl position herself? She positions her to the back of the room to observe, right? Where the guys go to this is literally like, as a teacher, as a student, this is literally like the only experience I've ever had. I never seen the girl being the first one to go to the sound desk and try it first. We ask permission to go there. We ask bass to be there. And unfortunately, it's not our job to ask for the space. It's not our job to make the space. It's so exhausting. It shouldn't be our job it's already exhausting to be the only one who's a woman in the space. But then asking and making your own space, constantly fighting for the space. It's so it should be the lecturer that Yeah, invades and makes sure that everybody is there and that she doesn't need to fight her way there. She's already offered that. So that's why I'm saying that it's everybody's responsibility. It's not our responsibility to make ourselves constantly have more strength, have more courage, have more these kind of talks where we are empowering each other and making each other better. It should just, it makes me sad sometimes that we need to give ourselves so much strength in a world where actually we should just do the job and not be fighting all the time. And as much as like these kind of podcasts and these kind of groups have given me the strength to actually not fight, because I understand what more they're like now doing this as my job and being part of like doing YouTube example. I've been introduced to hundreds of these type of groups or like initiatives. And I know like my Instagram is more full of female producers and gender minority producers than men. Like my whole bubble around me is mostly women in this industry. So I know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women. But when I started up, I didn't know anyone. And it makes you feel so alone and it makes you feel so angry. and I started my YouTube channel. I started everything from anger towards just wanting to prove and wanting to show and wanting to, until I kind of, what more I kind of understood how much more there are women around me, it made me feel calm and like I can just now focus on what I do. And now when I talk to women, it makes me feel, I feel like we can just talk about audio as well. We don't need to always talk about our position in audio. We can talk about just audio as well. And it feels so nice. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I do see the value, because every week, every day, there might be a new girl who finds their way to a podcast like this. They find their way to a YouTube channel or group, and it makes me cry, but yeah, it opens up their world that they're like, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah, and it's just that's why it's so important. Like I get so much out of doing these podcasts, and because I think every single one I've done, someone has said one thing that's just given me the energy to do the next thing, or given me like a boost. And I just, if one girl listens to it and is like, yeah, I'm going to do this now because that's enough for me. That's more than enough.
100%. And this is why I keep on doing my YouTube. And this is like, I started Equalize Music Production, where we do courses on Ableton for women and non-binary people. And then example, when people say, oh, women are just not interested in audio, I'm like, well, we get sold out straight away. And why they want to come to us is because they feel safe with us, and this is again space. They don't need to, they know they're coming to a space just to learn, not to fight, but just to learn.
In part 2 of this interview, Liina will be breaking down one of the tracks from her Making an Album in 7 Days series on YouTube, a track inspired by a certain scientific someone's TV show. You don't want to miss this. See you in part 2.
When I got into this whole album, I had no idea what I was gonna make. So I had no concept. I have no idea titles or anything. When I was doing this, I ended up using Juno synth.
Oh no, sorry. What?
Yeah, the synth, Roland synth. But the film is good as well. Love that. So I started to use it a lot, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, and it has a very spacey sound. And I always get my ideas in the shower, and I was in the shower, and I was like just thinking these lyrics, and I was just thinking, okay, do you know the BBC series The Planets and the Universum where the professor...
Oh, I think I've seen a little bit of it, but not enough.
Yeah. I'm literally with my husband. We're the most obsessed about that series. And it's Professor Brian Cox is telling about planets, and it's kind of like watching those series is really giving me a perspective in life. Science gave me a lot of answers. Yeah. But watching that, I don't know, I was just very inspired by that series.
And
so one of the songs I wrote about Brian Cox.
Oh, cool.
So then this kind of became the whole theme of the album. So it's about the planets, it's about space, it's about time and space, and he talks a lot about time and space and time traveling, and it's really interesting. I definitely recommend watching it, but it's great. So this song, it was just like, it's interesting with its arrangement that it's kind of instrumental, very harmonic and melodic without solo instruments or without too much vocals. So I want to play the intro to the chorus, and then I just want to talk about the chorus bit a little bit. Oh, Brian, tell me about the sky. The planets, tell me about the time. Brian, you make me feel alive. Brian, you make me feel alive. Okay, so it's not mixed at all. Also, just this is literally, I just opened up after the 7 days. So this is not like, this is everything that I created in those 7 days. So I just like that it's very kind of humoristic as well. I just want, because Brian Cox does this like lectures where he does like actually tours and lectures about planets, and I was thinking like this could be his like entering music.
I was gonna say, are you gonna send it to him? You have to.
Of course, I am. He's a musician as well, so I was like,
I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I just find it really funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think compositionally, I find it very interesting, and I can't wait to mix this because I feel like it can become so deep and so like powerful in so many ways. And I love how the bass and the synths work together. And so when the chorus comes in, it has that like do 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 do, but harmonically, all the instruments are kind of complementing the melody line, which is something that kind of happened by accident. So there's a certain like movement and growth in the melody and the harmonic quality that it keeps a certain level of tension constantly while having very, very, very simple melody line. But I think the harmonically, it's just growing. And that's something that I'm loving about this chorus, is that it's so simply effective, which is like, I say that all the time, but simple but effective. And I think it's here, I added a second melody. So when on the second chorus, it has the main melody, but I added this, it just shows how harmonics are so powerful. adding harmonics into a certain, like filling the frequency range as well when you're doing composition. So we have the higher melody, and I added one melody like lower to that. And it just fills it up, and there's a certain like emotional quality that it just sometimes like brings it in. And I was like, it's so good. Oh, it's that one there. And then with the bass. Sidechain bass pad. Anyway, I don't know, there's something like, because growing up in orchestras and stuff, I found this very fascinating for myself, working with so much in synths in a very orchestral way. So I could almost hear that this is like the first violin, and that's the second, and we have a cello, and it's like or like in my head I was thinking like orchestral composition but with synths. And I can't wait to mix this, because there's so much happening now in the mids, mud happening on the mid, but like almost mixing this in an orchestral way, where we have the whole orchestra like in front of us, and we have the low end, we have the bass coming in, and so it's almost like a synth orchestra playing planets.
Yeah, it's really cool. I wanted to ask at the very beginning, I think the intro, how is that building? Is it just volume? Because there was this sense that it's coming, there's something coming at the. So I was wondering how you achieved that.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. There is a lot of auto filter, because I'm obsessed with auto filter. Like literally filtering anything just always works. So everything is filtered, I think. You can see that there. So that's the sidechain pad. And then we have the synths here, and I think they are also, auto filter. So I think the bass should be also, but here. But I don't know if it's actually enough. Let's just put a little bit. There we go. So now, so it's almost like it comes from somewhere. And then there's another filter. So can you see there's two filters on this group, and then there's two, no, there's not. No, there's one filter here, but it's actually a high pass filter, as well as here we have a low pass filter automated, and we have a high pass filter also automated. So what that does is that we're removing the high end in the beginning, and then we are removing the low end in the end. So what happens is that we are having that kind of crossfade of filters. So that's a very common DJ trick. So we are like first cutting high end, higher comes in, and then slowly the low end disappears. So what that does is that when we are getting to the verse bit, and when the bass comes in, we are having a lot more impact by the bass, because we cut the bass off there here. But it's something that we don't really recognize that it's happening, but it's kind of subtle technique.
That's why I could feel it, but I didn't know where it was coming from as well. That's really interesting.
So should we listen to it once? So now when you know that the low end is going to disappear, have a listen to that, especially here before the drop. And in the drop, there's extremely subby lift happening here. So we actually have quite many impacts going on here. So let's just show those ones. So this is the traditional impact. So there's 5 different tracks. Oh, on the top of that, we also have a white noise filtered with the LFO, so it sounds like this. And that's also filtered that it comes in like this. That one coming in. Sub. Like that. And there's this teeny tiny gap between the sub and the next section, and that kind of gives that kind of vacuum vibe. It's a lot of details, but this is why I said that, like, I could not have done this challenge maybe the same level I could have done like a year ago than what I did now, because all these details is what I think is one of the hardest things in music production, because it's knowing how to, it's actually keeping it simple, so you're not adding too many instruments, but the details is what makes it sound professional and complex, not the instruments by themselves. So it's all this stuff here. So let's just listen to that one more time. Now you know, kind of like there's the lifts and then there's the filter going on, and it's kind of simple, but it's, yeah, that's it. It's better with the more filter. Tell me. So that's kind of what happens. So you can see here, low end going completely off. It could even, I feel like that could even go the low end even more off, to be honest. No, sorry, I'm now interested. And also in this pad especially, because that pad is now bringing the low end quite a lot. But anyhow, I'm not going to start producing it too much in here. That's the thing. I did this so fast. Now I'm like, oh, I could do this more and more.
Yeah, and you've taken a break from it, haven't you? So now you're back in and you're like, yeah.
Literally. Exactly. But yeah.
Stuff like that, I'll like take a break and then I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to go and quickly listen to it before I shut the computer down. Then like 2 hours later.
Yeah, I went to straight away after the 7 days. I went for a holiday, and as soon as I came back, I was like listening back here, and I was like listening back to my streams to listen to the songs, and I was like showing them to my husband. He's like, "Hey, listen to this track. I actually that was quite a nice."
Yeah.
But I'm gonna now mix this, and anyone who's listening to this podcast and stuff, you can access those streams still on my YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for tuning in to She's Doing It, So I'm Doing It. You can watch more videos from the wonderful Liina over on her YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/LNA does audio stuff. If this is the first time you're tuning into this series, check out the other episodes at Narc Magazine. You can find us on Spotify or watch the animated version at www.youtube.com/Narc Magazine TV.